What's happened over the past 24 hours is mind-boggling. I knew they had thrown the afterburners down on this new intelligence crunch, identifying everything and trying to change the definition of domestic terrorism to encompass things that you and I could never have imagined. You see the quote on your screen: the urge to save humanity is almost always a false front for the urge to rule, because the government needs to save us from ourselves. We can't possibly responsibly handle anything. The small, minuscule few are going to ruin the freedoms and liberties of the many, because the urge to save humanity is almost always a false front for the urge to rule. So many things have unfolded. Trump names new acting director of national intelligence. I'm going to tell you why this is so critical to our story. Everything unfolding after our broadcast yesterday. So many new subscribers. So many eyes opened up by what they're preparing will make the Patriot Act look like child's play. There's a variable of the Patriot Act, the Freedom Act now, that many of you may be unaware of. Well, I'm going to tell you about that right towards the end of our broadcast. This little guy here, H.R. 2048 to be more specific. But before we get there, we have to cover this also. FBI wants to monitor Facebook and Instagram for domestic threats in real time. Think twice before you continue to use social media the ways you're using it, because they're weaponizing everything you're putting in there to weaponize against you. I want you to think about that for a moment. I'm going to give my intro. Once again, if you haven't subscribed to justiceignite.com, please do. Picked up a ton of subscribers yesterday. People waking up to what's happening around us. Many of us have gone through so many changes from what we thought was happening to what's really happening. Just below there's my donation portal, still extremely critical. Monetization for me is gone. They don't like these stories out for whatever reason. They're just truthful. They're backed in facts and figures. But nonetheless, suppression seems to be the word of the day. If you haven't subscribed to me on Instagram, a more personal touch, and of course Twitter, which I use, as much as I can. But there's other platforms now, alternate platforms like Mayway. So many of you have joined me over here, over 50 in the last day alone. Thank you, because this is an unmonitored platform, one where we can still speak freely. But now back to our story of the FBI wanting to monitor all our social media feeds in real time. To what? To build what? Against whom? You already have the Freedom Act. Why does this need to be expanded? Would be the question. If I were you, I'd ask. FBI and Facebook potentially at odds over social media monitoring. Wait now, you have a big problem when Facebook is pushing back against you. The subtitle says agency solicits vendor proposals to collect data from Facebook. What, you might say? Solicit vendor proposals. I'm going to show you one of those proposals very specifically so you understand what's happening. But see, this is being pushed by the White House to meet with tech companies about online extremism. They've had Google. Now they've called in Facebook. Everybody's got to come up to the White House now and discuss exactly how in real time we could get more data on those extremist American citizens out there that may commit an infraction, that may use that gun against the other American population, because, our Constitution definitely called for removing your guns on the thought that you may use it inappropriately in the future. It's definitely what our amendments stand for, right? Said no one ever. Trump calls for social media companies to detect mass shooters before they strike. This has been leading up for many, many days now. But the dominoes are falling extremely quicker than I ever expected. You go into this report, FBI, Facebook could clash over privacy versus monitoring. When Facebook is throwing up a red flag on privacy, everybody needs to be very, very concerned. Now, I should have seen this coming. In some ways, I did an old broadcast. Zuckerberg hires Patriot Act defense expert. That's right. One of the authors of the Patriot Act, Mark Zuckerberg, hires her to protect him. And this was a couple months ago. This was actually back in April. I did this broadcast. Little did I know that maybe in some minuscule way, as evil as this man is, he saw something coming that you and I didn't. So he hires the very author, one of the very authors of the Patriot Act, to defend him against now what he's pushing back against, the FBI coming in to try to grab all our data. Because you see, they actually have, and you'll see here, this is a solicitation of the FBI, and it states the Federal Bureau of Investigations intends to award a firm fixed price contract for the purpose of acquiring subscription services to a social media early alerting tool. Early alerting tool. How many times have we talked about this in regards to the TAPS Act? Predictive law. The precogs are here. What you may do in the future based on what you're putting on social media, the 8chans and Facebooks and Twitters and Instagrams of the world. The FBI wants access to all this data so that they can build this predictive profile of you. Well, if you watch the headlines, you know now that WhatsApp just announced and China announced that people can go in to your profile, send a tweet in your name, and nobody can detect it. So imagine if they want your message gone. All they have to do is jump into my profile and send a tweet that looks like I sent it. And you see all this precognitive software will catch that tweet. Next thing, there's going to be a knock on the door. You see how scary all this predictive methodology is. And everybody needs to be very concerned. Did you notice all the moves here? Deputy National Intelligence Director Sue Gordon leaving post. Go down in the article. President Trump said Thursday, a principal deputy director of national intelligence, Sue Gordon, will leave her position on August 15th. This coming on the heels of Dan Coats also resigning his position. What are these people seeing? What is so terrifying to them that they have to leave? Did you see this article come out? One American News Network. Report 9/11 Intel Center focuses on domestic terror. Raises concern over data collection. A U.S. intelligence center is shifting its focus to domestic terror threats. So the entire 9/11 Intel Center is retooling itself to focus on domestic terror rather than international terror, because that's become the most important crime of the day now. You're starting to connect the dots. It's why you're here. And your feedback has all been phenomenal. Now, if you take that one step further back to this Trump appointee, we're just going to go down and prepare for some of the chills to happen. In a shakeup of the top ranks of the U.S. national intelligence, President Trump announces Thursday that he will name Joseph Maguire the current director of the National Counterterrorism Center. Did you get that? This center right here. The director has been moved over now to fill in this huge gap in the intelligence office. The same person who was responsible for shifting the 9/11 intel from international terrorism to domestic terrorism is now in charge of the cognitive group that will gain all this information to help identify domestic terrorist threats. White supremacist threats, white nationalist threats. You bundling everything together? It's why I've stayed focused on this entire week, because this is critical, my friends. You can't find any more critical information than this until you connect the final dot. Senate passes Freedom Act ending Patriot Act provision lapse. That's right. You remember this back in 2015. But what was so significant about this change? Back to the law itself. We're going to step one step further. U.S. Patriot Act Improvement and Reauthorization Act of 2005. In amendment by striking June 1st of 2015 and inserting December 15th of 2019. That's when the Freedom Act is set to expire. That should have a lot of you scratching your head. Why now? In the midst of such tragedy, with a rapid influx and the dominoes falling quicker than ever, and people doing a complete 180 switch in the top of our administrations to positions they said they would never take, and red flag laws abounding, 200 governors coming out and requesting red flag laws, Senate saying we'll now take up red flag laws, the Intelligence Committee completely restructuring, people resigning, people coming in, the 9/11, the entire intel changing to domestic terrorism. Do you see the mosaic more clearly now? My friends, intelligence is power. You see here, the most dangerous man to any government is the man who is able to think things out for himself. Almost inevitably, he comes to the conclusion that the government he lives under is dishonest, insane, and intolerable. H.L. Mencken again. My friends, I'm calling out to anybody. And I hope there's Congress members, and I hope there's senators, and I hope the president's listening. Change your course. I know it's hard to connect all these dots. And people are beginning to believe that this is all part of a much larger plan. And that can't happen. This is America, land of the free, home of the brave, the great Republic of America. This isn't us, and this isn't what we stand for. Why is this happening? My job is to open up your eyes, so those with even a louder voice than mine could speak to those necessary to hopefully elicit some change. I speak to a higher power, so I'm not concerned about all this. And I want to make that very clear because I do see your feedback. Don't worry, Justice. No, in the back of my mind, I don't worry. I worry about the American people. I'll fight for the American people till the bitter end. I know who my God is. And I know who I report to ultimately, and that's why I sit here and beckon out to you to open eyes so that you too can see the deceit that now surrounds us, the larger agenda that's suddenly taking rapid form. So until next time, I want to see your comments. I want to see your feelings. I want to see now that these further dots are connected. I'm going to stay on top of this. I promise you that. My name is Justice Knight. If you haven't subscribed to my YouTube channel, I certainly hope you will. Please give this a thumbs up. I want to see your comments and share it everywhere because they prefer nobody connects any of these dots, but it's why you're here. And for that, I am forever grateful. God bless and Godspeed. Until next time, Justice Knight, signing out.